The kettle was whistling when my phone buzzed against the counter, sharp and insistent, like it knew something I didn't. I turned off the stove, steam curling around me, and reached for the mug of chamomile I'd been craving all morning. A quiet Saturday in my tiny apartment, until that buzz sliced through it. I glanced at the screen. A text from Mrs. Carter, an old family friend who used to slip me extra cookies at holiday parties. I hadn't heard from her in years. Her name alone tugged at memories I'd shoved into a dusty corner of my mind. The message was short, no pleasantries, just a punch to the gut. "I'm so sorry about your family. I saw something awful today." Attached was a video. My thumb hovered over the play button. Something awful? My stomach tightened, a knot forming before I even knew why. I tapped it. The screen flickered to life. A shaky shot of St. Mary's Church, the little brick building where I'd sung in the choir every Sunday as a kid. The camera wobbled, then steadied, zooming in past rows of pews to the front. There they were, my mother, draped in a black silk dress, her face half hidden by a veil. My father, stiff in a dark suit, reading from a crumpled paper, and my sister Layla, standing beside them, her head bowed. Behind them, a table draped in white cloth held a framed photo, my photo, surrounded by lilies, their petals stark against the dim light. A memorial, my memorial. I froze, the mug slipping from my fingers. It hit the floor with a crack, tea spilling across the tiles, but I didn't move. My father's voice crackled through the phone, low and measured. "She was a lost soul, but we tried to save her. We loved her, even when she couldn't love herself." My mother lifted a tissue to her eyes, dabbing at tears that didn't fall. Layla clutched her hands together, the picture of quiet grief. I blinked, my breath catching in my throat. They were mourning me. Me, Chloe Harper. Standing here, alive, breathing, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. What the hell was this? I scrubbed the video back, played it again. The details sharpened with every loop. My photo, the one from my 25th birthday, me smiling in a blue dress, was blown up, framed like some sacred relic. My father's hands shook slightly as he read, but his voice didn't waver. "Her struggles took her from us too soon. We pray she's found peace." Struggles? Peace? I wasn't dead. I was here, in this cramped kitchen, the smell of chamomile soaking into my socks. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I gripped the counter, the edge biting into my palms, and whispered to the empty room, "What is going on?" I hadn't spoken to them in 4 years, not since the day they turned their backs on me, shut me out like I was a stranger who'd wandered into their perfect little world and made a mess. But this? Holding a memorial? Declaring me gone? I replayed it one more time, searching their faces for a crack, some hint of guilt, some flicker of shame. Nothing. My mother's tears were too neat, too rehearsed. My father's words were a performance, steady and cold. Layla didn't even look up, her silence louder than anything she could have said. This wasn't grief. This was something else. My knees gave out and I sank to the floor, the phone still clutched in my hand. The video ended, the screen going black, but their voices echoed in my head. She couldn't love herself. Too soon. Lies. I wasn't some tragic figure they'd lost. I was alive, surviving, even if they didn't want me to be. 4 years ago, they'd cut me off, erased me from their lives like I was a stain they could scrub away. But to stage this? To put my face on display and bury me without a body? My chest tightened, anger bubbling up through the shock. Why? Why would they do this? I stared at the broken mug, tea pooling around the shards, and one thing crystallized in my mind. This wasn't a mistake. They hadn't lost track of me, hadn't wondered where I'd gone. They'd chosen this, chosen to kill me off, to write me out of their story. And as the realization sank in, cold and heavy, I knew I couldn't let it end here. Whatever they were hiding, whatever they'd done, I was going to find out. They thought I was gone. They were wrong. The video sat silent on my phone, but it wouldn't leave me alone. I stayed there on the kitchen floor, the spilled tea cold against my legs, staring at the dark screen like it might explain itself if I glared hard enough. My family's faces, my mother's perfect tears, my father's steady voice, Layla's bowed head, kept flashing behind my eyes. They'd buried me alive on that church stage, and I needed to know why. But to understand this, I had to go back. Back to the day they ripped me out of their lives like I was a weed choking their pristine garden. 4 years ago, I was still Chloe Harper, the older sister, the dependable one. Our family ran a small charity, a food bank my grandparents started decades back. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept us respectable. That is, until Layla decided respectability wasn't enough. My little sister, the golden girl with the dazzling smile, had a taste for things we couldn't afford. Designer handbags, weekend trips to Miami, a boyfriend named Jace who drove a car worth more than our house. She started dipping into the charity fund. First it was a few $100s, then thousands. By the time the auditors showed up, she'd siphoned off nearly $100,000. I found out by accident. I was balancing the books one night when the numbers stopped adding up. I confronted her in her room, receipts spread across her bed like a confession she couldn't hide. "Layla, what did you do?" I asked, my voice shaking. She just shrugged, popping gum, and said, "Relax, Chloe. I'll pay it back." She never did. The next day, the auditors called my parents in. I thought they'd see the truth. Layla's credit card statements, her Instagram posts flaunting cashmere and champagne. Instead, they turned on me. I'll never forget that night in the kitchen. My mother stood by the sink, her arms crossed, her voice low and venomous. "One ruined daughter is better than a ruined name," she hissed, her eyes cutting through me like I was already gone. My father didn't even look up from his coffee. "You're not our daughter anymore," he said, flat and final, like he was firing an employee. They said I'd stolen the money, that I'd betrayed them. Me, the one who'd spent years keeping that charity afloat while Layla partied. They didn't care about proof. They needed a scapegoat, and I was it. By morning, I was out. No money, no goodbye, just a suitcase and a locked front door. I called them, left voicemails until my throat hurt. "It wasn't me. Please, just talk to me." Nothing. I texted Layla. She blocked me. I wrote letters, sent them to the house, to my cousins, to anyone who might listen. The replies stopped coming. Friends I'd known since grade school suddenly had no time for me. My cousin Ezra texted once, "Sorry, Chloe, they said you're trouble," then went silent. Doors slammed shut, one by one, until I was a ghost in my own life. I couldn't stay. I packed what little I had, took a bus to a new city, and started over. I got a job pouring drinks at a dive bar, changed my number, learned to live small. No social media, no trace. I told myself it was temporary, that someone would call, that my mother might soften, that my father might ask where I'd gone. I held on to that hope like a lifeline, even as the months turned into years. But last year, that hope died for good. I tried logging into an old email account, locked. I called support, and the guy on the line sounded confused. "This account's been deactivated. It's listed under a deceased user. Chloe Harper, right?" Deceased. They hadn't just cut me off. They'd erased me. I sat on my couch now, the video still dark in my hand, their voices looping in my skull. My mother's delicate sobs, my father's solemn lies, Layla's quiet complicity. This memorial wasn't some random act of grief. They'd planned it, built it, sold it to the world. I wasn't dead. I was working shifts, paying rent, breathing through the mess they'd left me in. They knew that. They had to. So, why stage this? Why bury me when I was still here? The anger came slow, then all at once, hot and sharp. I stood, pacing the room, my wet socks leaving prints on the floor. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted me forgotten. And as I replayed that video one last time, their calm faces staring back at me, I knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of mine. Whatever they were hiding, I'd dig it up. They thought they could kill me off. They had no idea how alive I still was. I couldn't sit still after that. The video had cracked something open inside me, and the questions wouldn't stop coming. Why a memorial? Why now? I paced my apartment, the floor creaking under my steps, my phone burning a hole in my hand. Their faces, my mother's fake tears, my father's steady lies, Layla's perfect silence, haunted me. This wasn't just about cutting me out 4 years ago. This was bigger, colder. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to find them staring at a blank wall. So I started digging. First, I called Aunt Nora. She was my mother's older sister, the one who'd sneak me oatmeal cookies at family cookouts when I was little. We hadn't spoken since the fallout, but she was my best shot. I dialed, my heart thumping. It rang twice. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, cautious. "Aunt Nora, it's me, Chloe." Silence stretched out, thick and heavy, then a sharp gasp. "Chloe," she whispered, like she'd seen a ghost. Before I could say more, the line went dead. I stared at the phone, my pulse racing. I called again, straight to voicemail. Blocked. Next, I texted my cousin Jace. He was Layla's age, always glued to his phone. "Jace, it's Chloe. What's going on with the family?" Minutes ticked by, then a reply. "They said you overdosed abroad. Is this a prank?" Overdosed? My hands shook as I typed back, "I'm alive. What did they tell you?" No response. I tried my cousin Ezra instead, the quiet one who used to follow me around at reunions. "Ezra, please. I need the truth. What's the story?" His reply came slow, hesitant. "Chloe, they said you died. An overdose in some hostel overseas. Closed casket, ashes scattered. 2 years ago." I sank onto the couch, my stomach twisting. An overdose? I'd never touched drugs, never even left the country. I pressed him. "Who told you that?" His answer came in fragments. "Your parents. Layla, too. They had a whole story. Said you'd spiraled after you left, that it was too late to bring you home. We believed them." I nearly dropped the phone. They'd built a lie so tight, even my own family bought it. But Ezra's last text stopped me cold. "Are you really alive?" I typed back. "Yes, help me figure this out." He didn't reply. The pieces weren't fitting, so I went deeper. I pulled up my laptop, hands trembling as I logged into the county's public records site. A few searches, a name typed in, and there it was. Chloe Harper. Date of death, March 12th, 2 years ago. Cause, drug overdose. Status deceased. Certificate ID, BX47219. My breath caught. It was real, official, stamped, legal. They'd forged it. I grabbed my own proof. Passport, untouched by foreign stamps, pay stubs from the bar, my lease agreement. I'd been here, working, living, every single day they claimed I was dead. But why? What were they hiding? I opened Instagram, something I hadn't touched in years, and searched for Layla. Her account was public again, a glittering shrine to her life. I scrolled past selfies and beach shots until I hit it. An engagement party, white roses, champagne flutes, a rock on her finger that could have sunk a ship. My parents were there, beaming, clinking glasses. My father's caption read, "To our pride and joy, Layla, on her big day." Aunt Nora smiled in the background. Jace posed with a drink. Everyone I'd ever known, celebrating her. Not a whisper of me, no "wish Chloe were here," no empty chair. I was gone. Then I saw it, buried in the photos, a toast. Layla's fiancé, a guy named Hunter, grinned beside my father, who held a microphone. The caption, "To the daughter who's always made us proud, the daughter," singular. My blood ran cold. I switched tabs, searched the family charity's public filings. It took 3 clicks to find it. The trust fund my grandparents left me. College money, a startup nest egg, everything, transferred to Layla's name. Date of transfer, September 15th, 6 months after my death. Quietly, legally, gone. I stared at her smiling face, her white dress sparkling in the sun, the ring glinting like a trophy. It hit me like a freight train. She hadn't just taken my place. She'd cashed in on my grave. My parents hadn't just erased me. They'd sold me out. The memorial wasn't grief. It was a victory lap. I leaned back, my laptop warm against my legs, the room spinning. They'd built a lie, buried me in it, and danced on the dirt. But I wasn't dirt. I was alive, and I was going to make them choke on that truth. The truth sat heavy in my chest, a weight I couldn't shake. Layla had my trust fund, my family had their lie, and I had a death certificate with my name on it. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, the glow of my laptop screen fading as the hours ticked by. My parents' voices from that video looped in my head, calm, controlled, burying me without a flinch. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd stay gone. But I wasn't the ghost they'd made me out to be, and I wasn't about to let them keep this stage they'd built. I needed a plan. Morning came, gray and sharp through my window. I gathered everything: passport, pay stubs, lease papers, screenshots of Layla's engagement post, the forged death certificate I'd printed from the records site. It was a stack of proof, my life in ink and paper, and it was all I had to fight with. I pulled on my coat, the weight of the folder under my arm grounding me, and walked out into the city. My destination: a law office downtown, a small place I'd found online with decent reviews. I didn't have much money, but I had enough for an hour with someone who could tell me how to claw my way back. The attorney was young, maybe 30, with a messy desk and a tie loosened at the collar. He looked up as I dropped the folder in front of him. "I need help," I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my gut. "My family faked my death. I want it undone." His eyebrows shot up, and he leaned forward, flipping through the papers. "You're challenging your own death?" he asked, half stunned, half curious. I slid the death certificate across the desk. "I'm not dead. They forged this, stole my inheritance, and I've got proof I've been alive the whole time." He scanned the passport stamps, the bar paychecks, then looked at me like I'd walked out of a movie. "This is wild," he said, scribbling notes. "We can start with a fraud complaint, file a motion to revoke the declaration of death. It'll take time, though. Courts move slow." I cut him off, my hands clenching the edge of his desk. "I don't have time. They're holding another memorial for me this Sunday." His pen stopped mid-word. "Another one?" I nodded, pulling out my phone to show the text I'd gotten late last night. An anonymous number, one line: "Memorial for you, St. Mary's, Sunday." No name, no explanation, but I knew that church, I knew the address, and I knew this was real. The lawyer leaned back, exhaling hard. "Okay, we'll rush the initial filing, get an emergency hearing if we can, but Sunday's tight." I didn't flinch. "Then work fast," I said, "because I'm not missing it."
What?
I left his office with a handshake and a promise, legal wheels turning, slow but sure. But as I stepped into the cold air, my mind wasn't on courtrooms. It was on St. Mary's, on that memorial, on the faces I'd see when I walked through those doors. The anonymous text burned in my pocket. Who sent it? A friend? A guilty cousin? It didn't matter. It was an invitation, and I was going to RSVP in person. They'd dressed me up in their lies, buried me in their silence, pretended I'd never existed. Now they'd handed me a stage, and I wasn't about to waste it. That night, I stood at my apartment window, the city sprawling below me like a map of flickering lights. My reflection stared back, tired eyes, clenched jaw, a woman they'd tried to erase. I thought about the bar shifts I'd worked, the nights I'd spent rebuilding a life they'd torched. I thought about Layla's ring, my parents' toast, the trust fund they'd funneled into her hands. They'd played their part so well, grieving mother, stoic father, heartbroken sister. Let them grieve, let them cry, let them perform one more time. Because when those church doors opened, I'd be the one directing the show. I turned away from the glass, the folder still on my table, my phone beside it. Sunday was 2 days away, 2 days to sharpen my edges, to steady my hands. They wanted me dead? Fine. I'd give them a ghost they couldn't ignore, one that walked, talked, and tore their story apart. The city hummed outside, alive and restless, like it knew what was coming. They'd built a lie to bury me. I'd build a reckoning to bury them. And when the curtain lifted at St. Mary's, they'd see just how alive I really was. Sunday morning broke cold and clear, the sky a pale slate above the city. I stood across the street from St. Mary's, my breath fogging in the air, a black hooded jacket pulled tight around me. The church was alive. Cars lined the block, doors swung open, mourners in dark coats shuffled inside like ants drawn to a ritual. I watched them, my hands shoved deep in my pockets, the folder of documents tucked under my arm. It was surreal, like peering into a play where I was the star but hadn't been invited. My family thought they'd written me out. Today, I'd rewrite the ending. Through the open doors, I caught the low drone of organ music, mournful and slow, weaving through the chatter of the crowd. I edged closer, staying in the shadows, and peeked inside. There it was, my photo, the same one from Layla's engagement post, glowing under a halo of candles on a white draped table. Lilies flanked it, their scent drifting out to me, sharp and sickly sweet. My father stood at the pulpit, his face carved in solemn lines, his voice carrying just far enough. "She lost herself, but we never gave up on her," he said, hands clasped tight. "We prayed she'd find her way back." My mother sat in the front pew, a black veil framing her delicate sobs. Layla stood beside her, a handkerchief pressed to her lips, pearls gleaming at her throat. The perfect tableau of grief. I clenched my jaw, my pulse hammering. They were good, too good. The crowd nodded, some wiping tears, others bowing their heads. I recognized faces, Aunt Nora, Jace, even my old boss from the charity days. All here, all buying it. The priest stepped forward, his robe swaying. "Let us now stand for a moment of silence," he intoned, raising a hand. The room rose, heads dipped, eyes closed. The organ faded to a hush. It was now or never. I pushed the doors wide. The heavy oak groaned, a deep, deliberate creak that split the silence like a thunderclap. Cold light poured in behind me, spilling down the aisle, and I stepped into it. My boots hit the stone floor. Click, 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 each sound a gunshot in the stillness. Heads turned, slow at first, then fast. A gasp rippled through the pews. "Is that her?" someone whispered. A kid's voice cut through. "Mom, isn't that Chloe?" I pulled off my hood, letting my hair fall loose, and kept walking. Every eye locked on me, wide, disbelieving, terrified. My mother saw me first, her face drained white, her lips trembling. Then she crumpled, a hard, theatrical faint, her body slumping into the pew like she'd practiced it. My father's mouth fell open, his Bible slipping from his hands to thump against the pulpit. Layla locked eyes with me and froze, her jaw tight, her pearls twisting in her grip. The wine glass she'd been holding, half full, red as blood, tumbled from her fingers and shattered on the floor, splashing across her pristine white shoes. The priest stumbled back, clutching his cross. I didn't stop. I marched straight down that aisle, the folder heavy under my arm, every step a drumbeat they couldn't ignore. By the time I reached the front, the room was a held breath. I turned, standing under my own photo, the candles flickering at my back. The crowd stared, some clutching phones, others too stunned to move. I cleared my throat, my voice cutting through the chaos. "I heard I died. Funny thing, I'm here to correct the story." A murmur erupted, low and electric. I pulled the folder out, slamming it onto the table beside my picture. Papers spilled, passport, pay stubs, the forged certificate. No overdose, no tragic end overseas, no ashes scattered. I've been alive, working, paying rent, surviving, while you all mourned a lie. I turned to my family, my eyes burning into them. My father gripped the pulpit, pale as death. My mother stirred, her veil askew, her sobs gone silent. Layla's hands shook, her wine-stained shoes a ruin. "You told the world I was gone," I said, my voice rising. "Faked the papers, filed the certificate, and when I was legally dead," I spun to Layla, pointing, "you took everything. My trust fund, my inheritance, my life. Enjoying that ring, Layla? The house you bought with my money?" Her mouth opened, a choked sound escaping, but I didn't let her speak. The crowd buzzed now, whispers turning to gasps, a phone lifted, a red dot blinking. Someone was filming. Good. Let them see. "This isn't a memorial," I said, facing the room. It's a cover-up. They didn't lose me. They threw me away. I stepped closer to my father, my voice dropping low, lethal. And now you get to watch me walk back in. The air crackled, the lie unraveling, and I stood there, alive, unburied, waiting for the fallout to hit. The church was a storm of noise now, whispers swelling into shouts, chairs scraping as people leaned forward, phones trembling in their hands. I stood at the front, my photo looming behind me, the folder of evidence splayed across the table like a battle map. My family's perfect performance had shattered, and I was the crack running through it. My father clung to the pulpit, his knuckles white, his face a mask of ash. My mother sat upright again, her veil crumpled, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. Layla stared at the wine pooling around her feet, her pearls dangling loose, her breath coming in sharp little gasps. I'd lit the match. Now I'd watch it burn. I turned to the crowd, my voice steady, cutting through the chaos. "You didn't lose a daughter," I said, locking eyes with my father. "You sold her out, threw her away to protect your precious name." His lips moved, but no sound came, just a weak, empty twitch. I spun to Layla, my finger jabbing the air. "And you? Don't bother denying it. That trust fund you're flaunting, that's mine. You didn't mourn me, you cashed me in." She stumbled back, her mouth working soundlessly, a choked, "Chloe, slipping out before I cut her off. "Save it," I snapped. "Your lies don't work anymore." The room erupted. Someone yelled, "She's got proof!" Another gasped, loud and sharp. Phones were up everywhere now, red dots blinking like fireflies, capturing every word, every flinch. Aunt Nora clutched her purse, her face pale. Jace dropped his drink, amber liquid spilling across the pew. I stepped forward, my boots loud against the stone, and faced them all. "This wasn't a memorial," I said, my voice rising over the din. "It was a heist. They stole my life, faked my death, and thought I'd stay buried. But I'm here, and I brought the truth with me." My father found his voice then, hoarse and trembling. "Chloe, you don't understand. We thought—" I didn't let him finish. "You thought I'd disappear? That I'd let you rewrite me out of existence?" I grabbed the forged certificate from the table, holding it high. "This says I overdosed 2 years ago. Look at me. Do I look dead to you?" The crowd murmured, a wave of shock rolling through them. My mother whimpered, "Please, Chloe, not here," but I ignored her. "You buried me to protect yourselves," I said, my gaze sweeping from her to Layla to my father. "But I came back to haunt you with what you can't hide." I tossed the certificate down, the paper fluttering like a fallen leaf. The room held its breath, waiting. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. The silence was heavier than any scream, final as a slammed door. I turned, my boots echoing one last time, and walked out. The church bells started ringing as I hit the threshold, a deep, rolling toll that shook the air. Fitting. A funeral bell, but not for me. For their lie. Outside, the cold bit at my face, the street quiet compared to the chaos I had left behind. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd seen their faces, my father's defeat, my mother's hollow eyes, Layla's broken poise. The crowd had the rest on film, and that was enough. A few days later, I sat in the lawyer's office, signing the final page of a stack of forms. He slid the shredded death certificate across the desk, a grin tugging at his lips. "You're officially alive again," he said. I nodded, the weight lifting just a fraction. An investigation had opened. Fraud, false reporting, embezzlement. My family could squirm under that spotlight now. Let them try to lie their way out. I walked home that night, the city lights glinting off wet pavement, my steps lighter than they'd been in years. Their story had killed me once, made me a ghost in a world I'd fought to survive in. But I'd clawed my way back, not for their forgiveness, not for their tears. I'd done it for me. Sometimes you have to die in their version of the world to be reborn in your own. And this time I wasn't coming back to beg or plead. I was coming back to live, free, loud, and undeniable. They'd buried me to save themselves. I rose to bury their lie. And as the bells faded in my memory, I knew one thing for sure. I was done being their shadow.